An unmaintained roof maybe lasts 15 years if it's installed correctly. A roof that's maintained can last 30 or more. I've seen roofs older than 30, depending on where they're at and how much UV exposure they're getting. But a maintenance, I recommend a biannual maintenance plan, right? So twice a year, you'll have somebody come out, actually get on the roof, and it does a couple of things.
Welcome to the Posner Property Perspective. And today we're going to help you protect one of the most important investments in your home, and that's your roof. We're here with Brad Strawbridge, and owner of Capital City Roofing, but he also helps other roofers companies. He's helping them expand, and he's gotten software so that they can run a smooth organization, because it's not only getting your roof installed, but it's the process up to that point as well that has to go smoothly. And Brad, thank you for coming on today. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier about your different qualifications and boards that you're involved in. If you want to tell our audience a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful Saturday here in Atlanta, and there's nothing I like talking about more than about roofing, because it's pretty important. It's the literal roof over your head, right? It's
Right.
significant. And so Capital City Roofing, we take our credentialing process and the organizations that we are associated with very seriously, because just in Georgia, there are 10 to 15,000 air quotes roofing companies, right? Because there's no barrier to entry. You could go start a roofing company tomorrow if you wanted to. There's no licensing, formal licensing for specialty contractors in Georgia, and I feel like that's an issue. So we overcompensate. So National Roofing Contractors Association, which is the main kind of governing body of the roofing industry, I sit on the residential roofing committee. I also sit on the workforce development committee, and I sit on two boards. One is the National Roofing Apprenticeship Program, because furthering education in roofing and really the trades completely is something that I'm personally passionate about. And then I sit on the board for the Roofing Technology Think Tank, and that kind of coincides with the technology company that I use, that I own, and help contractors become more efficient, develop processes, leverage technology and AI in a, how should I say, responsible way, right? Not a way that is, there's a lot of hype in the technology space, and I'm not about hype. I'm about delivering results that work for my clients, because that's the most important thing. And in a nutshell, that's kind of what we stand for. Our tagline is, is what we stand for. We it's excellence in roofing, right? We provide excellence in roofing, and that's because we have high integrity and innovation. I'm a firm believer that if you stay on the cutting edge and you do what you say you're going to do, you'll deliver an excellent product, and that's kind of our methodology behind it.
So what's important to know, like with Capital City Roofing, is that you're not one of these drive-by. There's a storm, and especially right now here in Georgia, this whole week we're gonna have storms. And you're not one of these drive-by companies with a pickup truck that's gonna come knocking on the door saying, "Hey, we're gonna go to the insurance company and we're gonna replace your roof." And how does the
No.
process work? How do you find your clients? How do they find you? And then what's the process like?
Yeah, so we don't do that. Sometimes I think maybe we're missing opportunities by doing that, but to be honest, I run my business how I try to put myself in my client's shoes, right? Like, how would I want to be sold to? And quite frankly, I don't answer the door when people knock on it if I'm not expecting them. I just don't, and I don't know if that's I don't know what it is, but I just don't. And so I just automatically assume most people are probably that way. But no, we get the majority of our business, right? And our headquarters is here in Atlanta, in Alpharetta, Georgia, to be specific. And We have a branch in Nashville, Tennessee. We have a branch in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're launching a branch in Greenville, South Carolina this week. And it's by word of mouth, mainly. Word of mouth, referrals, and building relationships. The relationships is what matters. Like I'm in the roofing business, right? You're in the realty business, but we're really just in the people business. I mean,
Right.
right? I mean,
We're
people,
solving problems.
yeah, people buy from people and they do business with people and they refer people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And for roofing, the trust is the thing that matters the most to me because there's so many of my peers, if you could call them that, that they don't take that piece seriously. And they're I believe they're short-sighted and they're looking for that immediate kind of, can I cut a corner and just whatever it is, it just doesn't make sense to me because I'm looking for partnerships. I'm looking to be a partner long term and us grow our businesses together. So partnering with realtors, partnering with property managers, partnering with building owners, partnering with other professionals in professional networking groups like BNI and Chamber of Commerce and any association that I can work into my schedule, quite honestly. It's valuable because I would much rather do that than go send my guys to walk around a neighborhood and knock on doors or send a bunch of Facebook ads or all of that nonsense. I'm a firm believer that if I'm going to be a pillar in the community, then I'm going to do it by face-to-face type business development activities.
So when a realtor like myself calls you and says, my buyer's about to put a house under contract, and we think we're not sure about the age of the roof just from looking at it visually, we're kind of suspect there may be some issues. We call you, and what would the process be?
Yeah, so I've developed a inspection process. I call it the 27-point inspection. That's just because there's 27 checkpoints that we look at, and it's more than just the roof, quite frankly. Obviously, I'm not a licensed home inspector, but it's even more robust than a home inspection. We inspect everything, and it's really just about documenting it, because like I can advise anything and everything about a roof. Like I'm an absolute expert about roofing, but not so much about foundation issues or some of those other things. But at least we can document it for you, right? And like as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And so we do that 27-point inspection. We'll talk about plans for the roof because there's a misconception that if a roofing company gets the opportunity to give an inspection, they automatically just want to sell a whole new roof. And a whole new roof isn't always the answer. And that's why our landfills are full of asphalt shingles right now. And I'm about building value and helping to minimize cost for the clients, right? So if we can do a leak repair or we can do what I call a life extension, which would be kind of a more involved maintenance application, right? Or some people call it a tune-up, right? So we would walk the roof, we would seal any penetrations. If there was any damaged shingles, we would replace those shingles only. Those things, right? Like keep the roof watertight and perhaps buy some time so that way the homeowner or the building owner can save some money and put it in their budget to say, hey, I'm gonna extend the life of your roof, maybe another 3 to 5 years, right? Keep it reasonably watertight. There might be a leak that we have to respond to here and there, but start saving because in 3 to 5 years, you're definitely going to need a roof. If I can partner with someone and provide that type of consultative service or however you say that word, it's valuable and it builds trust because now it's like, oh well, holy smokes, like this guy's not just trying to get money from me. I am, but I'm trying to get it in the long term. I'm trying to build a real relationship so that way I can add value because there's more value than just replacing your roof. Like I said, there's 15,000 roofing companies. Anybody can replace a roof, but not many can sit across the table or beside you and say intelligently, this is the order of operations that you should go in that's going to produce the best outcome for you. And that's what we do.
You've seen a change in the way insurance claims have gone. I know from selling homes right now, we're finding that if we have a home that the roof is more than 10 years old, some of the insurance companies are like, well, we're going to give you a prorated replacement cost. We're going to
Yep.
depreciate it. And that has made people a little more hesitant. And then how are claims going? What have you seen happen in the last few years?
Yeah, so it's tough right now. And I'll kind of talk about why, the why behind it. So probably 5 to 7 years ago, it used to be so easy to get your roof approved by insurance. You'd have a wind crease shingle or a perceived hail strike, and you'd call it in, adjuster would come, they say, okay, great, I'm gonna write it up, new roof, right? And roofers realized how easy that was. And so unfortunately, it was kind of one of those situations where people that were very opportunist in nature took advantage of the situation, right? And they were getting roofs completely paid for that should not have been. Maybe it really should have been repaired, but somehow they were able to throw their weight around and convince the insurance company to do a full roof replacement. Or the worst example is, and I hate that this happens in the industry, but there's roofing companies that will manufacture damage. And so this is a word of caution to to anybody watching this. Be very careful who you let on your roof. Don't just let anybody on your roof. And there are good companies that door knock. There are. But if somebody's knocking on your door, do a quick Google search, ask ChatGPT, whatever it is however you search for things, do it and read a little bit and find out, are they credible? Is it a credible company? Do they have certifications? Do they have good Google reviews, etc.? Because a lot of companies, they'll get on your roof and maybe you don't have damage, but when they get off your roof, you will, because they're essentially committing insurance fraud. And so the insurance companies, the past 5 years or so, realized this, right? They even did sting operations and counter surveillance and all kind of tactical stuff to get evidence that this was actually occurring, and it was. And so now they're pushing back. And I mean, rightfully so. I mean, they're a for-profit business too, and I see both sides of it, right? Because now it's gotten to the point where they're so protecting their bottom line that they're just denying everybody. Even homeowners that have legitimate damage, they're just denying, or they're making it very, very difficult to get approvals. And that's also wrong, right? And it's so how do we kind of try to get back to a state of homeostasis? I'm not sure, but it's got to correct at some point because right now it's just unreasonable because you've got them dropping people, right? You've got them raising the deductibles to percentages of home value. It's hard right now. Or you have them just pulling satellite imaging without even verifying. This happens to a lot of my multifamily and commercial customers. They'll just look at historical data via satellite imaging and say, oh, your roof looks old, so you need to replace it in 90 days or you're going to lose coverage. And that's not fair. It's not fair. And so that's another reason why having somebody that can come do an inspection and then be able to put together a really well-written report to send to the insurance carriers to say, well, actually, I'm a roofing expert. You're not. You're an insurance policy expert. And per my recommendation, they're perfectly fine. The roof is fine. So you need to reinstate their service or we'll formally file a complaint with the Department of Insurance. And so those are some of the things that having a roofer like myself that has the knowledge of how things work at a very high level can be beneficial. Because at the end of the day, if I can have a conversation with an executive at an insurance carrier, they'll understand that I'm not a regular roofer. Like let's talk about this. Let's figure out what is beneficial for our mutual client because that is what the goal should be, not just protecting our bottom lines.
So when you're helping the clients and they are going to be able to get a new roof, I've never, they'll tell people life. I don't know, do we get as much of that? Or how did you mention earlier, you can prolong the life of your roof. So when you do put on a new roof, how long should a client, the homeowner say, okay, this should last for a certain amount of time, but what do I have to do to maintain it?
Yeah, great question, actually. So everything requires maintenance, right? If you think about it, your car, clothing, anything of value, if you want it to last, you maintain it. And roofing is no different. So an unmaintained roof maybe lasts 15 years if it's installed correctly. A roof that's maintained can last 30 or more. I've seen roofs older than 30, depending on where they're at and how much UV exposure they're getting. But a maintenance, I recommend a biannual maintenance plan, right? So twice a year, you'll have somebody come out, actually get on the roof, and it does a couple of things. One, you have eyeballs on your roof. So that way you can become proactive instead of reactive. Because if you have somebody and they're seeing something that doesn't make sense, or a defect or an anomaly or even a critter, right? Squirrels, raccoons, things of that nature, you see something going on and you're like, whoa, that's going to end up being bad. Let's go ahead and put something together to mitigate that, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is just doing basic maintenance activities. Like a good example is on the very ridge of the home, right? The peak. When you're putting the ridge cap shingles, they overlap like this, and when they're overlapping the nails that fasten them down. Well, the very last one, there's nothing to overlap it. So to cover up those nail heads, we typically use a silicone polyurethane mixture of a sealant. And over time, the sun, the UV rays, it makes that sealant fall off. It dry rots it and it falls off. And it might not seem significant, but the water will travel down the nail heads into the attic. And over time, it causes an issue, right? But if you have somebody get on your roof twice a year, it's not an issue because it's being taken care of. And then plumbing boots. So plumbing boots are the number one leak area on a roof. And so you've got somebody that's on the roof twice a year checking the health of those boots and doing something to it before it leaks, right? It's about doing something beforehand. So that way you don't have interior damage and mold and the things that moisture intrusion causes.
Now, does your company offer a service like this where you can send someone out?
Yes, we do.
And what
Absolutely.
is it just called a maintenance? Because you know what? I feel been doing real estate for 10 years. No one has ever said that, but it makes such sense. I have someone who checks my heating and air conditioning, make sure the filters are changed and doing all this, making sure all the coolant lines are fine. But no one's ever said, hey, has someone gone up on your roof? And I think that's, like I say, it's the most important, largest investment, right? It's on top of your home,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a program where they can come, someone comes out maybe twice a year to,
Yeah, and we can do biannual or annual, so either twice or once. We recommend twice, but once in the very beginning of a new roof, once is fine, right? But then it gets older, you probably want to increase the frequency. And it's a reoccurring like subscription model, right?
right.
We'll sign you up, you can cancel, at any time, give us 30 days notice, and we just kind of come at the same time. We determine, hey, which month do we want to come? We're going to come then, and then we're going to come then. We'll let you know when that appointment is. We'll set calendar reminders. It'll remind you the day before. We'll show up. We'll greet you if you want us to, and we'll completely leave you alone if you want us to also. We'll just get on the roof and do what we need to do, and then provide you again that report. It's the photographic report so that you have it for your records. And then 10 years from now, when the insurance carrier wants to try to pull satellite footage and say, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z, you can say, actually, here's all these reports that I've gotten done like clockwork. So I'm thinking no, I'm thinking you're wrong. So let's go over this, right? And it gives you evidence that you're doing what you need to do for your home. So there's a lot of ways that it becomes valuable.
So if I have a buyer who's buying a home, and a lot of times the sellers, it may not be the original seller who put the new roof on, or they use some fly-by-night company. Could you come out, inspect it, and then put them on a program of doing their maintenance?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I tell you, I just learned something amazing today, because I think it just makes logical sense. And I'll be recommending that. That's even a great closing gift, especially I have some investors who buy properties, and they can look and say, yes, this is a new roof. There seems to be no issues. But the buyer needs a little bit more reinsurance, and to be able to say, oh, we're going to bring someone out, they're going to do an inspection, and once a year or twice a year, they can come out and inspect your roof for you. I think that's a great selling point. Again, it's another service that as a realtor we can offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. And I can tell you why most roofing companies don't do it, or at least residential roofing companies. See, we do commercial and residential. And the maintenance program is very much a commercial roofing best practice. That's where I brought it over from. Because in commercial roofing, it's about long-term relationships, right? In most residential roofers, it's just about, boom, let me put your roof on and disappear, because maybe they don't even plan on being in business next year. You never know, right?
Right.
But for us, we know that the more interactions we can have with our client, the better, because we're going to provide a great service every time. And if we don't, we're going to make it right, because people do make mistakes, but we're going to do what's right by our customer. And so we want to see them as much as possible, because we know they're going to refer us to their friends and their family and their coworkers and everybody else, because we plan on being here a very, very long time.
One of the things I work a lot with my clients is making sure they're in a healthy home. And, we do things like radon testing, mold testing. Are there anything we should be looking at when we're looking at roofs in reference to making sure they have a healthy home,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What?
ventilation system?
Yeah, ventilation is huge. I think about, because we do roofing, but we do other categories too. I just advertise roofing specifically because it's what we're most passionate about. But we do attic insulation is one of the categories we do, and that is probably one of the biggest kind of pain points for that for what you're mentioning here, because literally almost every attic I see, unless it's a brand new home, has like rodent and like just droppings and just kind of nasty stuff, right? And it's usually mixed up in that blown in insulation, and it's kind of gross, to be honest with you. So when we do a roof inspection, we check for that and we document everything, and then we'll say, hey, look, from a logistic standpoint, while we're doing your roof, we could do this too, and it's going to save you money because we only have to come out once, and it's also going to save you like your health, because you breathe all that stuff. I mean, it's all circulated in your HVAC system. It's like I've never tested it. I'm not certified in that area, but I could only assume that it poses quite a bit of health risks. And then obviously the ventilation and trapping moisture in an unventilated area, it causes mold, it causes mildew, it causes those things. And so you've got to catch those things either before or right when they're occurring, so you can kind of nip it in the bud. And that's where we try to help out with our inspections.
Now, what kind of insulation are you seeing being used in the homes? Is it the foam spray? Is it the rollout?
So new construction is just going to be either your normal kind of kind of sectioned out fiberglass stuff, right? Which is the cheapest. It makes sense for a builder to use it, I guess. Or like the blown in fiberglass. I like the blown in cellulose, because it's organic, it's better for the environment. I mean, cellulose made out of plants or fiberglass, like it's in my mind, it's just better. And obviously there's tests and stuff that prove it too, but that's what we like. And then I don't like spray foam at
Yeah,
all.
there've been some issues now with it. I mean,
Yeah, don't use spray foam. It's just It's not good. The spray foam right on the roof decking, which a lot of people are doing, it's cutting the life of the roof in half because it's not allowing the shingles to cool down at all, because the shingles cool down by the ventilation, right? The intake through the soffits, and then the exhaust through the ridge vent or turtle vents if you don't have ridge vent. And whenever they spray foam all of that shut, it doesn't have the air circulating to cool down the shingles, and the shingles are petroleum based. And so they literally get hot and liquefy and create blisters. And when the blisters pop, the granules that are on the shingles that protect the shingle from the UV, right? It falls off. And so now I always picture like a road. You know how like a road over time the sun beats down on it and it creates the potholes and it breaks up. That's what it does to the asphalt shingle roofs. So don't please don't get spray foam. It's not good for your roof.
What are some other tips you would give our listeners as we start to wind down? What other things would you say about a roof? How often do you think roofs should get replaced? Typically, what should they be looking for? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, and so I would say the biggest advice that I want to give is about vetting your contractor and about making sure that the inspections, the proposals, make sure that you're getting a good, transparent, written out plan of action that whoever you're talking to can actually speak to it, can explain it, and then fact check them. Because again, there's a lot of people out here running around posing as roofing companies, and they're just salespeople. They're just trying to sell something, and it's so risky. You know, gamble if you like gambling, gamble on other things, but please don't gamble on your roof because it's important. It's the roof over your head. It's protecting everything else in that dwelling. And so make sure you're getting a it doesn't have to be me. There's a lot of guys that run great and girls that run great roofing companies. And I can recommend some of my competitors as well. But make sure one of us, I call it one of the good guys that are just going to help you get taken care of. Because at the end of the day, most roofing problems, they're not roofing problems. They're communication and process problems. Because a lot of companies, they don't have clear processes. They don't communicate well. They don't hold themselves accountable and they don't take care of their clients. And I hate to say it, but it's true. And so that's the number one thing that I can say. It's just a kind of a cautionary tale.
And you also mentioned, I mean, we didn't talk about this, but making sure you're using a contractor that is licensed and is insured, you're letting them go on your house. And you talked about your apprenticeship program. And I'm telling young people now, college is great, but make sure you're looking at fields that are using your hands, or I say body to body, that there's some kind of touch involved.
Yep.
So having skilled people to put on a roof, these are important. Having contractors who know how to do woodwork, all that is important because that can't be replaced with AI. So,
Correct.
AI can help streamline our systems, but they're not going to be able to do that kind of work. So making sure that there are programs out there to train our young people. And this is, everyone's going to need a roof. At some point, you're going to need a roof.
Yeah. Yeah,
So we need
100%. And if you have, anybody watching this, if you have young people that are in the stage of trying to figure out what they want to do, what they want to go to school for, summer jobs, all that stuff, please don't hesitate to reach out because I'm leading an initiative right now in Georgia that is bridging the gap all the way from K-12 all the way through the apprenticeship program and then into a job with either one of my company or one of my peer corporate sponsors that are going to be offering jobs as well. But we have partnerships with currently Gwinnett Technical College for trade, kind of CTE related curriculums. We have a partnership with Clemson University that we are trying to bring it into Georgia Tech, where you'll be able to get essentially a minor in roofing in their College of Construction, which is more of the kind of management, leadership type courses, and then right in or directly into just the apprenticeship program, which is going to be if you want to be, you want to work with your hands, you want to actually be the one nailing the shingles on. We can do that for you too. And so it's a real workforce development pipeline. And we're literally in the middle of standing it up right now. We have our first meeting at Skills USA at the Georgia, I just went blank, the Congress Center, the Georgia Congress Center, and it's a competition where we're showing roofing, right? We're showing how to do it, making it attractive, driving that awareness, driving that visibility of the program. It's so important. It's so important. And it's fun. Roofing's fun. I mean, come on. I mean, you get to climb on a roof, you get to, it is fun. And it's changed my life. And I'm so grateful to the roofing industry for it.
Well, I like the fact that you're giving back to the community and giving back to our young people, and that's so important. And I'm definitely going to be recommending roof inspections for once you're living in your home, doing the maintenance. I think to me, that just makes good sense. So, Brad, I want to thank you for coming on today. All the information to reach out to Brad and myself will be listed below. And as I always say, we'll see you at the closing table.
Thanks for tuning into the Posner Property Perspective. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful as you navigate your real estate journey. Remember, whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring the market, I'm here to help to make the process smooth, exciting, and stress-free. Let's take the next step together. Contact me today. I'd love to hear from you and make your real estate wishes come true.